My name is Quarles-Mowrer, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Pottstown. Welcome to everyone who's here in our sanctuary today. Welcome to everyone who's joining us online. And welcome to everybody who may be joining us sometime in the future via YouTube. With all, I know it's funny, with all of the choices that we have with our time and our Sunday morning, we're really glad that you guys all chose to be with us today. Good morning. Our music will be played by Christ. Thank you so much. And I'd like to send a shout out to my kid Lorelai for running AV for me today. For over 50 years, the UUFP has been a liberal religious voice in the Pottstown area. As UUs, we believe that the entire interconnected web of life is worth listening to, and that listening to those who are different can teach us as much about ourselves as it does about them. The world is a big place. There are lots of questions to explore. But we find it really important to explore all those questions together. We keep an open mind, we support one another on our search. And most importantly, we believe that your search for truth and meaning is for you. It's not for all of us to have an opinion on, it's for you. So our circle of justice and compassion is big enough for everyone, no matter where they're searching, no matter what questions they're asking. We hope your spirit, your heart, and your mind are refreshed this morning as we explore the way that love shapes our understanding of interdependence and pluralism. We come together this Sunday morning and every Sunday morning, not because we share a creed, but because we share a promise. We promise to support one another on our spiritual journey. Our services are very different each week, but the loving kindness we offer one another is the same. So whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever you are, we're glad you joined us today. Now we have a moment for announcements. So if you have an announcement, please come on up to the front. Please remember to use the microphone and remember to introduce yourself in case not everybody knows you.
Hi, I'm Linda, and I just wanted to, a couple of things. First of which is we had Liberty come through, and y'all know that there's stuff that we were looking to clear out in the fellowship that was placed in that room right by the main doorway. Liberty took a bunch of stuff. Now we are able to look to see what else is in there. Two things they didn't take, because again, Liberty is looking to resell things, right? They're looking for the money to be put towards, and Liberty supports people and families of people who are incarcerated. So it's a very good cause. There is a chair that's in there that actually structurally is still a very good chair, but because it's stained, they would not take it. So I don't know if anybody needs a chair and is good with slip covers. There is a chair free for the taking. There is also the Lego table that was from the children's room. Apparently it was repaired a number of times, and if you flip it over, you can see that it was glued, and it was this, and it was that. So again, if anybody is very handy, and I had asked Liberty, well, if we fixed it, would you take it? They're like, no. So if anybody is looking for a little Lego table for kids, and has the ability to fix the legs, again, feel free taking. If not, I'm looking for other places where maybe we just donate that stuff. Again, we should move it out. The second thing is, again, we are still looking for people to manage our RV and nursery. I have pretty much, you name a website or a college, I've reached out to try to get people. It is a paid, both are paid positions. And it's been really difficult. So really, I think it's going to be within our network. If you know of anybody that is looking to do something for some extra money on a Sunday morning for 2 hours, we have the need. So thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Erica, and the membership committee is hosting a movie night on November 8th. at 7:30, we're gonna show Will and Harper. It's a documentary, and Common Sense Media says it's good for 16 and older. I guess because of the theme of it. So if anybody would like to come, and you can bring dinner and eat it in your lap. We're gonna be showing it on the televisions here, and we're gonna have a discussion afterwards.
Hi, I'm Diane. Two things. One, next Sunday is going to be a little different. So when you walk into the sanctuary, if it's going to be in a circle, don't worry, it's supposed to be like that. And don't worry, it's not going to be so different from what you're used to. But I'm looking forward to it. The other thing is Saturday, November the 2nd at 6 p.m. We Wish the Moon Fire will be hosting a Samhain ritual here in the sanctuary to honor our beloved dead, and everyone here is welcome to come. It is most appropriate for children when you're 13 and up, but if you've got a really mature 10-year-old, sure. It's just, we're gonna be meeting with our beloved dead, and that might be a little bit too uncomfortable for little people. So, but y'all are very welcome to join us, and we would be very happy to see you. I don't know if I can remember everything to say.
Okay. Been co-opted into making two announcements. So good morning, I'm Valerie. First of all, my recurring announcement that I am holding a holiday craft raffle. I am still looking for donations. I have gotten promises from a few people, but so far only one actual donation. If you are, yes, awesome, yay, thank you. So, yes. So if you are a crafter or artist of any kind, like photography, painting, embroidery, like I'm a knitter, anything, I mean, I'm sure there are ones I can't even think of, paper crafting, things like that. Please consider donating something. All funds from the raffle will go directly to the church. Not keeping anything. I would like to start displaying items on the 3rd, which is 2 weeks from now. I can still put out stuff I get late, but I would like to start organizing my table for display on the 3rd. And then these are Maisie dolls. Laurie collects these. These are collected by the Health Partners of Canada. But, oh no, I'm sorry, yes, you make them also like I've made some and you know, yeah.
Thank you. Good morning, I'm Laurie. These are knitted and crocheted dolls that are made to donate to put into medical kits as packing material. They're shipped around the world in medical kits so that the service people and the doctors can distribute them to the children who may have nothing, and certainly nothing in the way of toys. So if anybody would like to join, any crocheters or knitters would like to join in on the 3rd Sunday, which is today, we meet after potluck, and I'd be happy to teach you knitting. I'm not a big good crocheter, but I'd be happy to teach knitting if anybody's interested. Thank you very much. Well, there's all different, you may know the ones. This is an elephant. And then there's little people. We like to do a range of skin colors around the world. So you know, different. You can make a little. The fun thing about them is you can make each one, you know, different. And so
I do want to say, just for like if you're scared, if you're like an intern or a crocheter, the base hat is just a tube. It's a tube full of stuffing. All of those extra details you can add on if you want, but
right,
you can make it very simple also.
and it's very satisfying and quick. So thank you.
Oh,
Thank you, everybody. All right, it's time for chalice lighting. We light our chalice this morning with the words of David Breeden. We light this chalice, remembering our own tradition and celebrating the rich diversity of traditions among us. As we search for justice, meaning, and purpose, may we remember that justice, meaning, and purpose live first in deeply listening to one another. And now is the time when I remind everyone that that same technology that brings us all together from all different corners of the world can also distract us from one another when we are all in community together. So if you would take this time to put your phone into worship mode so that we can all be in this room and be in our bodies together. All right, so once you've got your phone all squared away, next deep breath. Settle into your chair. You can feel the bones of your body actually pressing into the fabric and the cushions of the chair. You can feel the way that your shoulders drop when you take that big breath and exhale out. You can hear the sounds of just shuffling, people breathing together. You can hear the hum of the microphone. Our opening words this morning are by John Sacco. Listen, can you hear it? The Spirit is calling. It calls us in the silence and through the noise and busyness of our daily lives. It calls us in the brightness of the day and the darkness of the night, in times of hope and despair. Listen, can you hear it? The Spirit is calling. It doesn't matter what you call it, for it has no name, and it has many names. The Spirit of life, the Spirit of love, the Spirit of compassion, of hope, of justice. Listen, can you hear it? The Spirit is calling. It's calling to you and to me. It's calling us to greater wholeness, greater connection, greater service, greater love. It's calling us to heal the brokenness within ourselves and in others and in the world. It's calling us to live more deeply. It's calling us to beauty. It's calling us to laugh and dance and sing. It's calling us to live through life's pain and sorrow. It's calling us to live courageously, to live kindly, to speak our truth in love, and to bend the moral arc of the universe towards justice. It's calling us into community, into the greater life of all. Listen, can you hear it? The Spirit is calling. Let us worship together. So please rise in body or in spirit to sing number 15, the great hymnal, The Little Wild Birds. So whether you're young in body or in spirit, you're invited to come on up to the front. and to listen to Miss Valerie give us a story.
Come on, it's not with my kids. No? All right.
There's a couple kids in trees up front and I think they're on the way down.
Okay. So let me ask you, kids, have you ever heard of Jane Goodall? Do you know who that is? Well, yeah, it's your book. Do you know who it is? Jane Goodall studied chimpanzees. Well, still does. Great names for it. And this is a really cute story. In the illustrations, she looks like a kid because that's how this series is written. But this is actually quite long, so I'm going to skip a few pages. And I do apologize for not having slides, but I did want to share this with you guys today because when I was looking at Emily's topic and she was talking about what we can learn from animals and listening to animals, and especially she mentioned Dr. Doolittle, and Jane Goodall read Dr. Doolittle when she was a child, and it was one of the things that inspired her to do what she does. So I am Jane Goodall. I am Jane Goodall. On my first birthday, my father bought me a cuddly toy chimp named Jubilee. I loved Jubilee. I mean it, loved. I used to carry Jubilee with me everywhere. As I got older, when I'd line up all my toys and play teacher, Jubilee was the one who got his own chair. I didn't just love my toy chimpanzee though. I loved all animals, even the earthworms I found in the garden. And here it said, the mom says, "Did you bring the earthworms inside the house?" She says, "Don't worry, Mom, they're as safe as can be, right under my pillow." My mom told me the worms would be safer in the garden, so we took them outside and buried them back in their home. In addition to animals, I also loved nature. I named the chestnut tree Noogie and the beech tree Beech. Beech was my favorite. Thank you, Beech, for letting me read up here. Oh, that was another thing I loved, reading. Back then, my family didn't have a lot of money. To get books, we went to the library. When I was 7 years old, I got a book that would change my life. It was called The Story of Dr. Doolittle. I read it once, then read it again, then read it a third time before it had to go back to the library. It was about a man who could talk to animals. In the book, there's a parrot who says that if you want to learn how animals talk, you need the power of observation. But what I remember most is the part where Dr. Doolittle and his animal friends are being chased and they come to a cliff. And the monkeys decide to help make a bridge. Right there, the monkeys joined hands and feet. They became the bridge. Isn't that beautiful? We can accomplish anything by working together. After reading that book, I vowed that I would go to Africa and live among the animals. I wanted a job where I could learn more about animals. But back then, if you were a girl, people didn't think you could become a scientist. They expected girls to become nurses, secretaries, or teachers. I wanted to go to Africa. I wanted to study animals. Luckily, my mom always told me, if you want something, if you really want something, work hard for it. If you don't give up, you'll find a way. I never forgot that. Soon, I had my chance. One of my school friends invited me to visit her family in Kenya. To pay for the trip, I worked as a waitress and hid my money under the carpet. One day, I closed the curtains, counted it all, and she had enough. She got to go. The trip took 21 days by boat, so she couldn't even fly there. 3 weeks on a boat to get to Africa. I was 23 years old. It all seemed like a dream until I saw a giraffe who stared directly at me. It had dark eyes, long lashes, a black tongue, and was chewing acacia thorns. I knew my dream was coming alive. Finally, I was in the Africa of Dr. Doolittle. For a year, I read everything I could about chimpanzees. I was also, they're always observed in a lab. No one's ever studied them in the jungle where they actually live. I was also told that women couldn't be alone in the forest. They said I needed a guide plus a companion. My mom offered to come. I was ready. I'll never forget the day, July 16, 1960, the day I first set foot in what is today Gombe National Park in Tanzania, Africa. At 26 years old, I finally had entered the home of the chimpanzees. It was a place that would change my life. Still, it took nearly a year before I could get within 100 yards of the chimpanzees. One day I came back to camp and found out one of the male chimps is taking our food. Fantastic, that means they're not scared of me now. She's excited actually that the chimps are coming and stealing food from the camp. The next day I waited and waited. There were no chimpanzees in sight. Then at 4 p.m. I heard a rustling noise by my tent. It was the large male chimpanzee with a thick beard. That was the name I gave him. Graybeard, David Graybeard. That was the name I gave him. Back then, people told me there was a certain way to study animals, that I shouldn't give the chimpanzees names. They said animals were supposed to have numbers, not names. Why? They thought animals didn't have personalities or emotions. They thought if we gave them names, we'd start pretending they were like us. But that's what no one realized. They were like us. That day, David Graybeard took my nuts and my bananas. A month later, he took one from my hand. Even later, out in the forest, he slowly approached me and checked to see if I had a banana in my pocket. It was one of my proudest moments, having the other chimpanzees now understand that I wasn't a threat. I was their friend, and they were mine. Every night, I'd write in my journal about what I observed, and every day I saw the chimpanzees doing the same things we do. Holding hands, tickling, kissing, even patting backs to reassure one another. The more I observed, the more I learned. Soon I had so much information I needed a tape recorder. Then I needed an assistant to help observe all the other chimpanzee families in the forest. Today, thanks to our work in Tanzania, the whole world knows that animals have their own personalities and complex relationships. In my life, people told me there was a certain way to do things, a certain way to study animals, a certain way that girls should behave. They told me to follow the rules, but instead I followed my gut. In your life, it'll be easy to see how others are different from you, but there's so much more to gain instead if we see how alike we all are. All of us, all living things share so much. We have so many things in common. When we realize that and look out for each other, that's the most beautiful way to live together. Thank you for listening. You ready to go to class? All right, we're gonna do some fun stuff today. We're doing a little messy.
Okay, so I don't need to give my sermon anymore, that book just. So this is the time in our service where we pause for our morning offering. And I have to admit, I often feel a little bit awkward about the offering, just like I feel a little bit awkward about listening to the membership drive on public radio. That's going on right now too. But you know what? It makes sense to ask for this offering because an offering is just a choice. And when I contribute to the morning offering, what I'm saying is I choose you. I choose this faith and I choose this community. I choose to support UUFP because I believe in the power of love and I believe in our shared values of showing people kindness and treating people with dignity. The morning offering is a time when we have a chance to show our support for our values by giving to support our community. much for the morning offering, given in the spirit of generosity, received with gratitude and love. Thank you for the music, I love that. Next we have a reading, and this reading is from one of my favorite sources, Braver Wiser. This is a reading called Assurances and Affirmations. And I've read it before, but I think I didn't read it here. I'm hoping I haven't read it here before. I think I just read it in my email, and I think I forwarded it to my sister because I really felt it when I read it. It's actually from March of this year. It starts with a quote. It says, I said to the sun, tell me about the Big Bang. The sun says, it hurts to be calm. It's by Andrea Gibson. So, Jamie Yandel writes, recently, a friend of mine was lamenting to me about having a particularly low ebb day. That's my name for days that are hard for no identifiable reason. The dishes pile up in the sink and those important emails go unanswered. The clothes don't get pulled out of the dryer and put away. Simple tasks don't feel simple. And everything is just harder. As such, my friend was feeling a little down and motivation was scarce for them. I knew I was supposed to listen and not try to fix anything in our conversation. But there was one caveat to help take the edge off. I decided to affirm all of the things that I love about them while I witnessed their struggle and pain. My friend and I have a consent culture around this practice. We agreed years ago to affirm one another when the low ebb days hit, in an attempt to help get us out of the funk. I know a little something about those days where I don't feel loved or worthy or whole. And when I feel that way, I need love from friends and community. But those days are the days when it's hardest to ask for it. Well, slowly my friend began to feel a little better. And then I got a few more friends in our circle to follow suit by sending them uplifting messages of affirmations of who they are and what we so admire and love about them. Our friend then began to tackle their tough tasks, held by the healing balm of our small but fierce, beloved community. They texted me later that night to thank me, telling me how great it was to receive so much affirmation. It reminded them of who they are and why they're so important to this world. Appreciation and deep witness are beautiful gateways for returning to our most authentic selves. That day, it was their turn to ask for help. Tomorrow, it might be mine. Day after, it might be yours. What if we normalized asking for and receiving affirmations more regularly? If you have a few extra spoons, what would it look like to bless a friend who is out of spoons by sending extra affirmation, assurance, and love? And she ends with a prayer. We are not just flesh and bone. We have stardust in our veins, a reminder that we carry within us the planets that align in our hearts. May we show up for one another, show up for ourselves in the process, and remember that we are divinity incarnate. May we learn to lean into that pure and true source in each other more willingly, and with a love that will not abandon us and will sustain us for the many hard days that have passed and for those days that have yet to come. So please remain seated as we sing Spirit of Life together. It's number 123 in the Gray Hymnal. The words are also on. Channeling Dr. Doolittle. Listen. Pay attention. Think about where and when you might have heard those words. You need to listen to me right now. My parents would say that to me when they wanted to impress upon me that I needed to behave in a certain way. It is not safe to cross the street without looking. Hey, look at me in the eyes and listen closely. Yeah, Mom, okay. We all work together to keep that house clean, so you need to listen when I tell you to take that thing upstairs. Successfully listening in that case did not mean that I needed to respond. It just meant that I needed to do exactly what she asked for. And with a smile. It's time to sit down and listen. We heard that often in our school children, or at least I did. And then we learned a very specific way to listen and pay attention. Listen involved, for me, sitting still at my desk, absorbing the words that my teacher was saying, copying out what they had written on the board, and then reflecting it back to them in whatever test or essay or question they wanted to ask later. Listening did not involve any expectation of conversation. It did not involve any creativity. It was just remember and repeat. Écoutez et répétez. Those were my instructions in French class. Listen and repeat. Listening was literally just hearing those words and saying them back to my teacher out loud and trying to copy the accent, except that my teacher was from Texas, so her French yeah, so it was écoutez, répétez, but with a Paris accent, please. Yeah, okay, I can tell the difference, sure. So listen and repeat. How many of you grew up with those instructions maybe in your religious education courses? Just listen and repeat. You know, is it any trouble that we sometimes have a tough time listening to people? Really listening with an open mind and an open heart when those are among our formative experiences with listening. When listening is associated with taking in what someone else said and no questions asked, no questions allowed. So I chose Dr. Doolittle for my title, since Dr. Doolittle is famously able to speak with animals in their own language. So I haven't actually read that book, although I am more interested in reading it now that I've heard how much Jane Goodall liked it and what she liked about it. When I was researching it on Wikipedia, it didn't sound like something I would like because it was written, you know, in the 1920s, and it had a lot of the same things I don't like about Joseph Conrad's books, like Heart of Darkness. It had a lot of those same issues. So, and if you like Joseph Conrad, more power to you. I don't mean to offend you, but it was not for me. Yeah, so I haven't read the book written by Hugh Lofting in the 1920s. I haven't even seen any of the adaptations, not even the ones with Eddie Murphy. Those I heard were really great, but I did not watch them. They were like right at that time when my kids would not have wanted to see them. And I haven't watched anything that my kids haven't watched in about 14 years. But I do really like the idea that a person can speak to animals in their own language. And I love the idea that the way that you learn to speak to an animal in its own language is by observing. When I was a child, that was the superpower that I wanted to have. Like I watched Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty and Snow White, and I was like, oh, they can talk to woodland creatures and do their chores. And you know, did you guys see that movie Enchanted with Amy Adams, where she comes to New York City and she comes out of like the fantasy fairy world, and she calls all the woodland creatures in New York City to come do her chores, all the rats and cockroaches. Okay, yeah. Well, despite never having read that book, I always did wonder why Dr. Doolittle was a human doctor if he could talk to animals. I mean, you could talk to animals. Why would you be a human doctor? You don't even have to, you could ask them, hey, where does it hurt? And I thought, well, okay, so maybe he's not, maybe he's not a human doctor because like it wasn't cool to be a vet back then. And then I remembered, no, it was totally cool to be a vet back then. Because I read all of those All Creatures Great and Small books. Let's see, who was that by? That was by James Herriot. His real name was actually James Alfred White. And he went to Glasgow Veterinary College, which was established in 1862. So people actually really valued veterinarians. In fact, we thought that we invented veterinary medicine in the 1800s, but if you read some of the ancient stuff from like ancient Egypt, they had like really, really advanced veterinary medicine then too. So who knows? Did any of you ever want to be able to talk to animals? Anybody? Yeah. I think it's really interesting, the way that we put it is that we want to be able to talk to the animals. Because I know I already talk to the animals. Like I talk to my dog all the time. And I'm betting that any of you who has a pet also spends a significant amount of time talking to the animals. But when we say, I wish I could talk to the animals, what we really are kind of saying is, I wish I could listen to the animals. Or maybe we just wish we could make animals understand that we want to listen to them, like the squirrels or the deer that run from me when I'm walking down the street with my dog. I want to say to them, no, it's okay, I'm not gonna hurt you, neither is my dog, he's too stupid to. But you know, honestly, I just joke about my dog being not that smart, but he's actually smarter than me because he understands like 10 words in human and I understand 0 words in dog. And you know, I would joke that my cats are just as good at English as I am at cat. But in the case of my cats, I truly believe that even if I could speak cat, they would just do whatever they want anyhow. They do the whole smile and nod, and then they just do what they're gonna do. But the thing about animals is that they don't speak in words. So listening to animals really involves watching and interpreting what they are doing, because behavior is communication. But you know, even though I had animals growing up, I don't think I really understood that I could listen to the animals until I started working with horses. Because unlike the dogs and cats that populate my house, horses are prey animals. And so a horse's first instinct is to run if they're uncomfortable. In humans, we have predator eyes. Our eyes are right on the front of our heads. In horses, they have prey eyes. Their eyes are over here. So they have like a blind spot here. They have a blind spot behind their tail. And they can see all the way around besides that. I can't even imagine, like I can see like to here, but they can actually see back that way. So one thing I learned is that when you're going to communicate with a horse, especially a horse that you're not familiar with, you have to give them a lot of space. So like when I volunteer with horses, and there's this dry lot that occasionally we have to catch a horse that does not like people, and we have to get them to go into the stall that's attached to the dry lot. Now, if the horse is in this corner way over here, like 30 feet away, if I lean and point, that horse is gonna run in circles around me like this, because I'm using my gaze and they're like, oh no, that predator sees me. And so I don't have to really move a whole lot. They're watching my body language and they can tell that when I'm leaning this way, oh no, I'm coming towards you. Or if I'm leaning that way, like, so what I might do is if I'm trying to get this guy who's over here into that corner, like that corner stall, I might go like this and then like wave my arm and that horse is be like, oh my gosh, they're coming, and run this way. And then when they think that they're gonna turn and go all the way around the loop, I lean out like this. I'm 30 feet away. Do I have 30-foot long arms? No. But does that horse turn around like I do have 30 feet arms? Yes. Just leaning like this, and the horse is like, oh, it's gonna get me. So what I had to learn to do is I used to be a lot more direct and a lot more firm with what I was doing, and I tried to get close to that horse. And then I wasn't looking to see that that horse was gonna spook, that that horse was gonna move, because they have really, like, their ears tell you what they're listening to, what they're paying attention to. You can't see where their eyes are going, their eyes see everything. Like, for a human, you can tell what we're paying attention to by where we're looking, we turn our heads. A horse doesn't need to turn their head, they can see this. So you can't tell by what they're paying attention to by looking at their face, but you can tell by their ears. They're listening this way, they're listening that way. They're listening, or they're pinning their ears back, in which case, watch out for their feet. Another thing that was really important with working with horses is that they react to your body. So if you're coming in and you really have to get something done and you have to do it fast and you're tense and you're walking right towards them, they're like, something is wrong and I better go run away right now. So with horses, there is a saying, if you have 5 minutes, it will take you an hour. If you have an hour, it will take you 5 minutes. They really pay attention to our body language. We are talking really loud to them. So we have to like ease back and learn to listen to what they're saying. So horses communicate through body language and posture. So I need to approach a conversation with a horse with a relaxed body. Often I'll get nowhere until I breathe and relax so that they can breathe and relax. And the other thing that I've learned about working with horses is that I don't know what experiences have shaped their reactions. There are some horses that you can walk right up to, you can pet them right between the eyes, that's their blind spot, so that can be something nerve-wracking for them. You pet them right between the eyes and they'll lean into you. There are other horses, you raise up your hand and they do this, or they do this, or if they're really scared. So one horse loves to be scratched between the eyes, and another horse startles and shies away from my hand. But I can't take that reaction as a reflection of me as a person. Not something like, my intention was never to frighten them. My intention was something good. But whatever they had experienced in the past, that shaped their reaction to what I was saying with my body language. And the things that I can apply to horses, I can also apply to people. So for that last point, I can't take someone's reaction to my communication as a reflection of my intention. That's a really important part of listening for me. So if I'm speaking, I'm trying really hard to choose my words with care. But if I say something and I'm paying attention and I hear that, or I see that they are recoiling, reacting to it, they may be finding what I'm saying hurtful or dismissive. And if they have the courage to tell me that they're finding something that I said to really upset them, then I need to listen to that. I need to be able to hear that with an open heart beyond my own concept of, well, I didn't mean it that way. So of course I didn't mean it that way. Nobody ever means it. But all behavior is communication. So if somebody is directly communicating with me that they were uncomfortable, then that means that I need to take a step back and look at the way I was listening and the way that I was speaking. There's that old adage that says, if you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, you should use them in proportion. That's a little hard to do because of the way we're socialized. One of the things that we focus on in our culture is what to do. That makes it hard for us to listen. Like in the reading today, where the speaker said she was, or they, I think they were actually a they them, said that they were very conscious of the fact that their job as a listener was to listen. Wasn't to react, wasn't to judge, wasn't to help, just to listen. And, you know, in our culture, since we have this focus on wanting to do for others, we want to provide solutions. We want to say, you can try this, you can try that, maybe this will help. How can I help you? And sometimes the best way you can help is just by being a caring presence who's there to hear. Now, in meetings at work, if I am really listening and paying attention, that means that I am typing notes. There isn't a chalk dusted blackboard to copy. And much as I try, I really can't type as fast as people can speak. So I am missing chunks, and I hope I'm not missing the important chunks. But I'm also not able to speak while I'm listening in this way. And in some ways that really is helpful, because that means that, you know, that silence, have you ever tried this? When you're in a conversation with somebody and you want them to say more, instead of prompting them with something, you just sit. And it gets a little uncomfortable, and then somebody says something else. So that works when I'm typing. The problem with typing, though, is that I'm looking at this, and especially in our digital world, when I'm looking at this and not looking like this into the camera, they can't tell that I'm paying attention to them. Like often in a meeting, I will have to say, I am listening really hard to what you're saying. I'm just typing these notes. Please don't think I'm working on an email in another project right now. I'm really typing the notes of what you said. But you know, it's hard to listen to humans that way, especially if you're not at work where you're typing notes. It's really hard to listen and be focused and really not want to jump in with your own whatever it was that came to mind when they told their story. Because we want to be good conversationalists. I know the feeling of trying to be a good conversationalist, trying to really listen, and then not having anything to keep the conversational ball rolling so that it gets a little awkward. So on the other hand, if you do try to prepare something, you're not hearing what the other person says, and then you're just waiting for your turn. So you're not making that connection. And if we're listening to someone we disagree with, sometimes we're listening in that same way that we learn to listen to our parents. And that can leave us feeling even less open to their viewpoint. Or if we're listening the same way that we listen to our teachers, and we're thinking in the back of our head, just, I don't agree, I don't agree, I don't agree, I don't agree, instead of hearing what they say and paying attention to the way that they're sitting and the way that their bodies are being held. You can learn a lot just by letting people speak and really hearing and really paying attention, even if they don't agree. Like sometimes someone's words don't make a whole lot of sense to you, but their body language does. I don't have to agree with someone about a hot button issue, taxes, the war in Gaza, but I can understand slumped shoulders or a tense jaw. David Rome, writing for Mindful in 2010, wrote that Carl Rogers, the great American psychologist, taught active listening, a practice of repeating back or paraphrasing what you think you're hearing and gently seeking clarification when the meaning's not clear. Reading that made me think of my French teacher's écoutez et répétez, or listen and repeat, in a whole new light. It also gave me a tip of what to do when I'm listening so hard that I don't know how to keep the conversational ball rolling. Rome writes, deep listening involves listening from a deep, receptive, and caring place in oneself to deeper and often subtler levels of meaning and intention in the other person. It's listening that is generous, empathic, supportive, accurate, and trusting. And trust here does not imply agreement, but the trust that whatever others say, regardless of how well or poorly they say it, comes from something true in their experience. And another thing that Rome recommends is that when you're listening this way, you start by listening to yourself. Do you ever listen to yourself really deeply? Sometimes that's just as uncomfortable as listening to someone else. And that silence is that thing that we just pick up the phone and we're like, okay, I'm gonna scroll through Facebook, that was uncomfortable. Or, you know, I've told you guys about this study before, but it comes up every time in my mind when I think about listening to the inside, to what's going on in your mind. There's this study that they did to see just how long people would be able to sit quietly by themselves. So they had a room and they told people, oh, that the test taker will be in for you in just a minute. And you know, what we're doing, it involves this shock buzzer here, this, so, you know, don't touch it though, because you'll get a shock. And then they went away and they just waited to see how long it would take before people shocked themselves. And really, almost everyone in the study eventually just was like, ow, ow. There was one person who actually shocked themselves over 57 times. It can be really hard to listen to your own self. And if it's that hard to listen to yourself, think about how hard it is to listen to other people. So when you manage it all, you're doing a great job. Listening is hard to do. And, you know, not every conversation requires active listening. So it's okay to give ourselves some grace and acknowledge we're not going to be perfect listeners right away or every time or in every situation. I mean, deep listening to your Starbucks barista, just you find out that they really want you to take your coffee and go. But, you know, maybe having a relaxed posture, having an open expression, ensuring that they tell that you can see them as a person and they can see you as a person, maybe that will make that quick interaction a positive interaction. And maybe down the road, every time you practice that open, deep listening, you'll get a little better at it. And it'll lead you to recognize more opportunities that we have where we can each become a pair of listening ears for someone else who needs to be heard. And that's my hope for me and for each of you. So let's join in singing hymn number 207. That's Earth is Given as a Garden. And the tune is Hyperdoll, which you may recognize as We Go Home. But it's got different words. So I'm going to use these for them. Distinguish this child's flame, but not the light of his death. The warmth of humanity, for the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts, in our hands, until we are together. And we'll close today with the words of King Zucker Morgenstern. In every person we meet, especially those who cause us discomfort, we find an opportunity for us to grow, to learn, to go further along the path of transformation that is our purpose in life. Every single one is our teacher. May the next week bring you many such moments of meeting that help you become the person you want to be, and may you welcome those meetings with joy. Amen, shalom, salam, blessed be, and please join me in getting coffee and treats and social life.
Thank you.
Let's figure out what I did before I